Hi, welcome to the Eau Claire Community Foundation 2025 Community Grant Cycle Grant Training. I'm Rebecca Whitebody. I will be your guide today as we explore the wonderful world of our foundation's grant cycles. Just to give you a little background, if you're not familiar with the Eau Claire Community Foundation, we are a funder, so people entrust us with money. We invest that money wisely, and the interest on that earning goes to provide grants to wonderful nonprofits like yours. So we have all sorts of types of funds. We'll be discussing the ones that are major players in our grant cycles today, but there are a lot of options for donors that we offer. Without further ado, I will share our grant screen so you can see our website and find out where all this information is. So all of the information that I'm going to talk to you about today can be found on the Eau Claire Community Foundation website. If you go to our homepage at ECCFWI.org and hover over Lasting Impact on the upper bar, you'll see a menu pop up. Go to Grant Opportunities in the upper left-hand corner. Click on that, and you will find information about our grant cycles. We offer several grant cycles. Some are long established, some are very new. Just to run through these quickly, our community grants health cycle is one of our new ones. It debuted this year. This is to support community health needs and address disparities. So if you have medical related grant requests, that would be a good one for you to investigate. It will be open from April through June. The Women's Giving Circle grant cycle is also long established. It was founded by a group of women who came together to pool their resources, and they support grants to women and children in the Eau Claire community. If you serve those populations, that might be an interesting opportunity for you. That also will be open from April to June. The William Bingham grant cycle is a new opportunity through our foundation. It was created by a generous bequest from William Bingham, who was an Eau Claire resident who loved our community and wanted to have an impact on it. This provides 1 to 3 large high impact grants each year. That will be open from July to August. The Royal Credit Union and ECCF Nonprofit Professional Development Grant Cycle is open from September to October. It is currently open even as I record this, and that provides grants of up to $500 to allow nonprofits to attend trainings or conduct strategic planning sessions that they might not otherwise be able to afford. Finally, I am going to, just so you know too, there will be a new grant cycle coming in 2026, the Physicians Community Impact Fund, and that also will be a health-related grant cycle. So if you provide health-related services, that will be one to keep an eye out for. Finally, I'm going to talk about the community grant cycle, which is one of our oldest and best established grant cycles. And that is going to be opening soon from November 12th. This year it will be open from the 12th to January 21st of 26. So this is a very open opportunity. We offer grants in multiple categories, so there are lots of funding opportunities. Most community grants have historically been in the $5,000 to $15,000 range, but there is technically no minimum or maximum that you can request in this grant cycle. Before I continue with our grant cycles, I also want to mention that the Eau Claire Community Foundation is affiliated with other wonderful organizations. The Eau Claire Public Schools Foundation has been affiliated with us as a supporting organization for quite a while. If you work for the Eau Claire Public Schools, that would be an interesting opportunity for you to get funding for your classrooms. We're also affiliated with the Rusk County Community Foundation. So They run their own grant cycles, but if you're in the Russ County area, that would definitely be an opportunity worth exploring. And finally, last but not least, our newest affiliate is the Anne Marie Foundation. They also run their own grant cycles. Their website links off ours, and that provides you a whole new opportunity. So you might want to investigate that as well if you're looking for new sources of funding. Now, back to the community grant cycle. You can find information about that by clicking on community grant cycle on our page. And that will take you to more information about it, as well as links to some documents that are connected to it. Before you pursue this opportunity, please make sure to read our grant making guidelines to make sure your request aligns with our eligibility requirements and giving categories. We generally traditionally have offered the grants in 4 different giving categories. There's Create Culture, which is arts, for visual and performing arts, literature, music, and museums. Form Futures is education and training for both adults and children. Give Green is animals, the environment, and physical fitness. And Offer Opportunities is basic needs like health, medical care, shelter, things like that. So when you are coming up with a grant proposal, please bear those categories in mind. You'll see on our grant making guidelines too, there are also eligibility requirements. And the ones that I really want you to be aware of are that we are focused on the Eau Claire County for this grant cycle. So make sure at least 50% of your impact will be in Eau Claire County or benefit residents from Eau Claire County. Another thing to be aware of is that we have 3 different grant processes within the community grant cycle. So 3 different types of grants you can apply for. There are program grants, which are ongoing services. So if you are, for example, running an after-school program or doing a weekly food pantry or providing some kind of benefit to the community on an ongoing basis, that would be the one for you. Asset grants cover one-time purchases or improvements. So, for example, if you need a new computer or a copier, or if your website needs an upgrade, asset would be the kind of application that you would select. Our newest category is operations grants. We've offered that for just a few years now. That is the only one with a specific maximum. You can apply for up to $10,000 to cover expenses from an unexpected funding loss. Say you had a fundraiser that got unexpectedly canceled, or a transition, say your director leaves and you need to replace her or him, or if you have unusually high expenses. So if the cost of the materials that you use to provide your services suddenly increase, that would be an eligible expense as well. So within the community grant cycle, we can only accept 1 application per organization. So before you start applying, make sure that you select the cycle that best fits your funding needs at this time. One other thing to note too is that although within the community grant cycle, you can only apply for 1 kind of grant, either program or asset or operations, you can apply to more than 1 grant cycle. So for example, you can apply for a community grant and a Women's Grant Circle grant and a Bingham grant. So it's just within community grant cycle that you have to limit the number of applications. For a grant, you will go to the grants login link on the upper part of our website. You can also hit the apply here button on the page about the community grant application. And once you do that, you will end up on our login screen for our grant software. If you have a pre-existing account, use your username and password, which is your email and whatever password you created. If you know for sure you have not applied for a grant before, or your organization hasn't, you can create a new account. However, if you're not sure, please contact me at the foundation so that I can look it up and see if your organization already has an account. Once you are logged into the system, either with a new or existing account, you will see the applicant dashboard. And mine is pretty blank right now because this is just a test. But if you have information about previous grants, that will be stored on this page. When you hit apply at the top, it will take you to grant cycles that are currently active. And you can see brief descriptions of ones that are active. I am going to open a program grant just so you can see what this would look like. So I hit apply here and I come to the grant proposal. So once you have started your application, you will notice that at the top there is a collaborate button. If you have other people at your organization that are working on your application with you, you can invite them to collaborate on the application. So for example, if you have financial people that are providing the financial documentation you need, or if you want to have somebody proofread your application, you can click collaborate and type in their email. You can adjust their permissions here. They can view only. You can have them edit, or you can allow them to submit the application on your behalf. So you select the level of permission that your collaborator is invited to have. And then once you are in, you will be getting to the application and filling in the boxes. So I won't take you through every single thing, but if you are going through the application and you have questions, feel free to contact me at the foundation while you're in the process. A couple things I do want to point out though is that it's going to ask you to select a grant category, which are the ones that I mentioned earlier. You might have an application that's relevant to more than one category. However, we ask that you select the one that best fits your request. And this will not affect your possibility of getting funded. It just helps us sort the applications for our grant reviewers. Every year we get between 50 and 60 grant applications, and that's way too many to ask any one volunteer grant reviewer to read. So we split the applications by grant category and assign each category to a different group of reviewers to even out the workload. So please check one category. As I said, it won't affect your potential of being funded. If you see any field of interest funds that may fit your request, please list them here. This is an important thing for you to consider because we do have a class of funds called field of interest funds. Most of our applications are supported by unrestricted funds, which are funds where a donor starts a fund and says, we want this to support the most urgent needs of the community as recommended by the grants committee. So those are not limited as to the kind of grants they can fund. There are also, however, field of interest funds that support the community grant cycle. And these each have different interest areas. So if the donor has an area like animals or art or the environment they want to support, but not a specific organization, they start a field of interest fund. And then the grant reviewers match the field of interest funds with relevant applications in each grant cycle. So when you hit that question, it's worth your time to look at the field of interest applications and see if any seem relevant to your request. If you do see ones that are relevant, you can type them into this field. If you don't, that won't affect your odds of getting funded. But if you do find someone that that are relevant to your application, it might give you a competitive edge when the grant reviewers are deciding what allocations to recommend to which applications. If they know that there's a field of interest fund that's really relevant to an application, that might make it a little more likely to be funded. So it's worth your time to do that. We also have another class of funds called donor advised funds, which are started by donors who would like to play an active role in their philanthropy. So they are able to recommend grants to any nonprofits at any time. And each year during the community grant cycle, they get a list of the applications that were submitted. They can review that list while the grant reviewers are doing the review process. And if a donor advisor sees a grant that they would like to support, they can recommend a grant from their fund in order to supplement any other funding that grant would get. So the the donor advised funding is announced along with the other funding for community grants at the end of April, but this process will be ongoing during the grant review process. In the past, the donor advisors have received spreadsheets, but now our grant application form has the ability to create a grant catalog that the reviewers can log in and see. So they'll log in and browse this grant catalog, and they'll be able to see pictures and click to recommend a grant directly from their fund if they're interested. That is why you will see a section of the application called Grant Catalog Questions. Your responses here will be visible to our donor advisors, and they will be able to recommend grants if they are interested in your request. And another new thing I would like to point out for this year is that the budget section has been redone. Our software now has the ability to offer budget tables rather than just text fields like we had before. So when you get to the budget section, you'll see tables that will allow you to put both the cost of the item and any grant support you're requesting for it. So if you're asking for $10,000 and 1,000 of that is for salary to hire an administrator to manage your new program, and you're asking for $1,000, you would put the total cost of that manager and any grant support you're asking for in the right-hand column. And please note that salary benefits are eligible for funding through the program grants, but you have to show that those salary and benefits are directly relevant to the program that you are running and not just expenses that would be paid by your organization, whether or not you were getting this grant funded program going. Once you have filled in all your boxes, you'll see the final upload section. And then once you are done, you have the choice of saving the application if you're not quite done, or if you filled out everything, but you would like somebody to look it over before you submit it, you can save. When you hit submit, it will come to our end and it will go into the pool of applications that will be looked at by our grant reviewers. So once the applications are submitted and our deadline is January 21st of 2026 at noon, the applications will go to our grant reviewers, and they will spend the next several weeks carefully reading and evaluating the applications, first in their subcommittees, and then they'll come together to recommend grants as one big group. Those grant recommendations will be reviewed and approved by our Board of Trustees at the end of April, and grant results will be announced in early May. This your checks will be sent to our grantees. And if you're selected for a grant, you'll have a pop-up in your grant portal with the follow-up or grant acceptance agreements and grant report forms. The grant acceptance agreement has to be e-signed before you can receive any funding from the foundation. It verifies that you'll use the grant as intended. Please be aware that the grants will need to be used within the grant period. If at some point you realize that you are not able to complete the grant as intended within the time frame, you do have the opportunity to submit a letter of request for review by our Board of Trustees at least 60 days before the end of the grant period, so that you can request a redirection of funds into something similar, or you can request an extension so that you have the same grant proposal just a little longer to get everything done. The grant reports are very important for that to be submitted on time because they keep your organization in good standing for future funding. So if you get funded, please be very careful to keep track of the grant follow-ups and submit any reporting as necessary. When you go to our grant opportunities page, you'll also see other funding opportunities. These are options for things you can do outside of grant cycles. So if you have a request outside of a grant cycle, you can submit a letter of request that will be shared with our donor advisors and considered for funding if they're interested. And that, one other thing too, I do offer a collection of grant writing tips that is available in the community grant cycle section of the grant opportunities page. So you can look at that. And we also have an exciting new resource this year, which is our grant training workshop that was led by Ann Kaiser of ANK Nonprofit Coaching. And that will be posted under a nonprofit grant training. Session 1 has already taken place in October, but session 2 will be in November. So if you happen to be watching this before November 17th and you'd like to sign up, you can do that. Recordings of both those videos will be available on our nonprofit grant training section of our grant opportunities page. If you have any questions about grants, feel free to let me know. My email is grants@eccfwi.org, or you can always call the foundation office at 715-552-3801. Thanks very much for your time today and happy grant writing. Thank you.